Hello, U.S. History. Welcome to another Varela's videos. Today's notes are titled The Great Depression in America. So we've been looking at the causes of the Great Depression in our previous video. So let's talk about some of the realities that Americans are facing here in sort of the thick of the Great Depression. You can still be using your same notes. I would draw a line after wherever your last note's finished, or turn the page, start a fresh page, and it's always helpful to put the date. So here we go, the Great Depression in America. So let's talk about the rural areas and how the Great Depression is affecting our farmers. Prices for crops continue to fall even further as we get into the 1920s. Now, this is after the crash of 1929. So you figure the crop prices had already been falling in the 1920s and they just continue to fall. Many farmers are going to lose their farms completely because if you think about it, if you're not able to earn enough money from selling your crops, you're not going to be able to pay your mortgage for your land and your home. So many farmers are actually going to lose their farms. And when that happens, we see a tremendous wave of migration. So think of the word migration as moving. So you're moving inside your own country. So these are going to be farmers who feel that there's nothing left for them in their home states and they're going to move. And to be honest, many of them move to California, especially those in what we're going to learn on the next few slides in the Dust Bowl, in that great sort of Midwestern Central Plains area. So speaking of Dust Bowl, here's an actual photograph of these dust clouds that are going to envelop our country. We're going to see this in one of the videos that we're going to be watching on the Great Depression, but it literally is a dust bowl, a storm cloud of dust that covers the land. And it starts with really a drought that when there's not enough rainfall, and again, I don't want to get super sciencey here, but because the soil is so dry from this drought, this lack of rainfall, this whole top layer of the soil just gets picked up in these tremendous clouds. And look at that scary cloud. Why does the soil just sort of pick up? It's because the soil is not only depleted of water, it's depleted of its nutrients from over plowing, really from over farming. And I can't blame farmers. If you know that you grow wheat and your wheat is successful, you're going to want to continue to keep growing that wheat. The problem is the soil needs a break. And in the 1930s, there isn't the knowledge or the availability of fertilizer. And for now, if you see neighbors that put fertilizer, even though it's kind of stinky, on their grass to make their grass grow, that wasn't readily available, even though we're talking about farmers and there's cows everywhere. The idea of using that resource really isn't playing. And in some places, it didn't even matter. Even with the fertilizer, the soil is so dry that these dust clouds just pick it up. And they create these giant dust storms that would literally cover people's homes and take away the sun. Like you could not see, not just the building in front of you, you couldn't even see your hand in front of your face. So what does it mean by overplowing? And again, the two things together, the drought and the overplowing, really sort of happen together. If you just have one of these, you're most likely not going to have the storms that you're seeing, but it's the two factors combined that really led to this phenomenon that we now call the Dust Bowl. And it pretty much incorporates the entire Midwest from North Texas all the way up to the Dakotas. Migration. So we're looking at a picture of, nowadays we would call this kind of a jalopy. It's basically people who are taking everything they own, everything they can carry, and putting it onto this vehicle, and they are driving west. Most of them are hoping to find work picking fruit or other crops here in California because of the California soil is not suffering like the soil of the Midwest. So this is literally a family getting ready to migrate west. And if we think about the city, since that was the rural areas, our farmers, our cities don't have it much better. We've talked about the unemployment rate as high as 25% unemployment. If you were lucky enough to keep your job, you're also seeing your hours and wages cut. So that's not good. If you're looking at what we call less social mobility, and what that means is people just feel poorer. And because they feel poorer, they are not moving up in sort of social class or social standing. It's not called the Great Depression for no reason. I mean, people are really feeling it. And I know that like with the COVID that we've been dealing with and the pandemic, you kind of feel like you're cooped up in your home. But this is talking about a social mobility where you don't see it getting better for yourself. You don't see a way to make it better. And that is really disheartening. And because of that, this idea of the American dream really is destroyed for millions and millions of people. And what we're looking at is we always have had poor people, yes. But now what we're looking at is really some rich people and pretty much everyone else is poor. There really isn't a middle class at this point because if you were in what we think of as middle class, most of that has been destroyed through this depression, through this unemployment, through wages and hours being cut. Bread lines are a phenomenon. I'm going to show you a picture of that in a few minutes. But in terms of how are people coping, remember, we are in a time where there is no such thing as welfare or Social Security. There is no government assistance. So you are relying on charity. So bread lines are literally like a soup kitchen or a food pantry would be today, a place where if you're hungry, you could go to get something to eat. Bread lines were pretty much organized by churches and other private charities. Nothing is run by the government. And we also see the creation of what became known as Hoovervilles. Now, Hoovervilles are literally homeless camps, grouped homeless people living in camps or what we now call shanty towns, and they're named after President Hoover. The idea being that Hoover became president in 1928 slash he takes office in 29. And we're looking at the year 1930, 31, 32. It's been 3 or 4 years and nothing has changed. In fact, it's gotten worse. So they named these little like camps after President Herbert Hoover. So here's a picture of a Hooverville. This is actually a picture from 1932. I don't know if you can see right here, but it's sort of carved into it. I see quite a few American flags. You can see some of the materials. You've got cardboard. I think I see a door right here. So these are literally towns that are just made up with remnants of, I almost want to say trash or discarded items, and very, very crowded. And they're usually on the outskirts of towns. Here is a kind of a common slogan you would see where it says, jobless men keep going. We can't take care of our own. So this city is saying, we got nothing for you. Keep on walking. So this migration is not just family. Sometimes it's single men just sort of looking for work. And this is a sign saying, don't come here. We've got nothing for you. And then here's a picture that becomes pretty famous through the Great Depression of a little one literally sleeping in a cardboard box. So he's little, he can kind of fit in there and um, looks like he's kind of smiling. He could be playing right now, but the point is this picture became famous because this is where many children end up sleeping. They end up sleeping in just whatever items people can find to give them a bed in. So this is kind of a famous picture. So what is the president doing? Well, President Hoover is of that mindset of laissez-faire. Let the economy kind of fix itself. So he's hoping for volunteerism, for charities to continue to help and give to others. He keeps commenting that what the country is witnessing is normal. It's the upswing and downswing. It's the natural business cycle. There's good days and bad days. The problem is at some point you might have to do something. But he continues this idea of encouraging volunteerism, encouraging volunteers, donate where you can, private charities. But let's be honest, these charities are stretched very, very thin. In terms of business, he encourages businessmen to keep their workers, keep workers employed, also keep their wages current. Don't cut their wages. Also, don't raise prices. Those are things that business owners can control. His hope is that if we can just stop it from getting bad, maybe it could get better. So he asks and implores business owners to keep their employees, to keep wages the same, to keep prices the same, so it can kind of help customers. And then the government will start to act in certain ways. The government will slowly start to reduce taxes. The government will slowly start to create these public work programs. But the problem is 1932 is an election year. And so these programs are a little late. And the next president is going to jump on board and take these ideas and run with them. Also, he asks wealthy individuals like the Jeff Bezos and Elon Musks of the world to donate and step up and donate more. You need to give to charity and keep giving to charity. Um, in terms of activist, which is not usually a name we associate with Hoover, but what are some things he will do? He will create something called the Reconstruction Finance Corporation. What is this going to do? It's basically going to give money to big businesses and banks, which is a part of the economy, true, but this is not going to help everyday Americans directly. This may help them down the road, but this is not going to help the people that we saw in those Hoovervilles, the people who are trying to migrate west. Why won't he help them? Because at this point, we're seeing an idea that later becomes called trickle-down economics, but you're seeing this idea start to form. Money that pours into the top of the economy will trickle down to the base, trickle down to everybody. It'll start and happen through government loans. And again, starting with the banks, which is what frustrated many Americans. Banks will give those loans to businessmen. Businesses will hire more people and products will continue to increase. So we'll keep production going. And the idea is these three items are going to create the cycle that will build the economy back up. And I don't think these ideas are wrong. The problem is they are very slow. And we are 3 years into the Great Depression at this point, and people have no more patience for President Hoover. So it's an election year. He will be running against Franklin Delano Roosevelt. You probably know where this is going to go. And I'm going to save that video, Brother Can You Spare a Dime. It's a very famous Depression era song. I'm going to save that for class. But for right now, we'll go ahead and leave this at 1932. So we're looking at the election year. I think Hoover's time is done. And there will probably be a new president that will take these ideas of acting and truly act on them. All right. Hope you took some good notes, and I will see you in class.